What's going on, guys? So, got another Reddit story here. This one is called, I went from a BMI of 37 to a BMI of 23 in 9 months. Here's how it went. So, this person says, I had my gastric bypass at the end of March, and I'm currently sitting at a healthy weight. Good. I went from an XL to a double XL. Sorry, I went from an XL double XL to a small medium. So honestly, I don't know why this person went for gastric bypass at 218 pounds. 218 doesn't seem that heavy to me. At least not heavy enough to go for something as extreme as a gastric bypass. I fully believe that this person could have done this naturally. I mean, kudos for it working for her, but gastric bypass is a lot of trauma to put your body under, not as a last resort. So she goes on to say, fluids. Drinking enough was impossible. I struggled for at least 2 months and was hospitalized once for exhaustion and dehydration. I couldn't drink enough while also eating 6 small meals plus vitamins and all the other pills. So you're getting a picture of what life is like right after having a gastric bypass. It's not necessarily the most comfortable life. She says, don't worry too much, it'll be better soon. I can now drink a normal glass of water in a normal time frame and can even gulp down some. I also drink carbonated drinks all the time from a straw. They're not worried about that. It is not prohibited at all in my program, but make sure you always follow yours. I've also had alcohol 3 or 4 times. When you do get buzzed really quickly, at least for me, it disappears she says, while you do get buzzed really quickly, at least for me, it disappears just as fast. I guess for people who have a tendency to like being drunk, this will cause you to drink way too much. So do proceed with caution. So the way I react to this is, I mean, when you get this kind of surgery, you're fundamentally changing one of the basic functions of being a human being, and that is eating. At only 218 pounds, for your life to change in this way, like, listen to what her life is. She's trying to eat 6 small meals, fit in all the vitamins and other pills, and this has become difficult for her. This can't be a comfortable life. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to necessarily subjugate myself to encountering these kind of outcomes just for 218 pounds. If you're like 400 and you're also 5'4", yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult because there's likely other physical things that are going on as well. This is probably a person that cannot walk as well. This is probably a person that may have arthritis. To support that much weight on such a small frame, I would opt for that kind of surgery for more extreme levels of weight, especially given her height. But that's just me. So she continues, I'm good with coffee also. It doesn't cause any discomfort or dumping. I was on pureed food for about 3 days before moving on to soft foods. After 6 weeks, I was allowed to have everything except fatty foods and sugar. I still stay away from the sugar completely. I've tried a small piece of chocolate and that was fine, but I just don't want to push my luck. Sugar has always been my addiction, and I'm glad to have reason to stay clear from it. So the reason why they have to eat pureed food to start with is because you don't want to put too much stress on the stomach after having such an invasive surgery to start with. So pureed food is perfect for this. Number 2, the stomach is really, really small at this point. Large food chunks, they risk getting stuck in the stomach and causing bigger problems. Also, eating more pureed food is going to make it less likely that you encounter nausea and vomiting, which can be very, very prevalent with these kind of people. And also with the pureed food, you can get your full nutrition in a way that would be more difficult if you're trying to eat solid food with such a drastic reduction in the size of your stomach. So she continues, I have also not had fried foods except one time I had fried cauliflower with lots of protein and it was fine but yummy. I can eat chips and I can eat popcorn, but I'm only allowing myself a small portion as long as my weight is still in a good range. I know for some of you, this would go against your program. I am following mine, and the doctors are incredibly happy with my progress, saying that I'm about a year ahead of my goals. So, when I hear something like this to me starts getting into the habits, and if this person is starting to form different habits, and I'm not saying this is an overnight thing that will get corrected immediately just because they had their gastric bypass surgery. But it's a bit alarming that, for a person to go through something as drastic as this, that there isn't more inclination for different behaviors. At least it doesn't sound like that to me. So, and I'm thinking about this in the context of what the surgery actually costs. Out of pocket, these surgeries can be as much as $35,000. So I wonder about the mental state of this person, the relationship with food, and if there's some sort of therapy that's paired with this program to help the person navigate their relationship with food. Because with some of these surgeries, people end up going back to the way they used to be, even after getting a gastric bypass surgery. That is something that happens. Just for it not to work and have their body go back to the way it used to be. And that is something that happens. But all this is to say that I suspect that there's a different root cause here than just the food. The food is a problem, and eating and how she's eating obviously was a problem, but I suspect that there's something a lot deeper that's going on that can be teased out by maybe a therapy program or some sort of coaching program. So she goes into dumping syndrome. I'm going to tell you what that is in a second. So she says, I do get late dumping occasionally, and I've not figured out what it is that causes it. I start shaking badly. I cannot concentrate, and I get absolutely ravenous. Standing and walking becomes difficult, and it takes about 30 minutes to subside. I think I'm supposed to eat some sugar and then some carbs or protein, but I just eat some Weetabix with milk or a high protein pudding, and it always helps. It is very uncomfortable, and I've been lucky that it's always happened before bedtime. Would it happen at work or while driving? It would be a much more serious story. So, dumping syndrome is basically a condition that occurs after certain types of stomach surgery, such as gastric bypass or gastrectomy, for example, where the food moves way too quickly into the small intestine. So, if you look at the anatomy of the actual stomach, there's what you call a fundus, then you have the rest of the stomach, and then the stomach sort of funnels into a sphincter called the pyloric sphincter. And then what that does is that there's a mechanism that opens and controls how much food is getting into the small intestine. Now, when you have a surgery like this, uh, some of those functionality of the pyloric sphincter can get lost because you are inherently changing the mechanism of digestion by cutting into the stomach like this. And so when that happens, there's less control of how fast that food is entering into the small intestine. And that's called dumping syndrome. And you'll get symptoms such as what she's describing here based on that. And so this tends to be brought on by foods that are high in fat or high in sugar. Um, Again, whenever you're talking about some sort of treatment that is a workaround of diet and exercise, there's usually going to be some sort of trade-off that you're going to experience in some way, shape, or form. And I find that to be true time and time again. So it is honestly best to go through this weight loss process the natural way. I think you want to save the more extreme stuff for true medical necessity. I have severe arthritis and I can't even get up out of bed without pain. Things like that. I have a broken hip and it's hard for me to exercise. My knees are bone on bone and on both sides, and it's hard to exercise. Even the bike or the elliptical causes me knee pain. Yeah, those people, I'd say, yeah, those are people that would benefit medically from a gastric bypass surgery. I just find that hard to believe to be the case at only 218 pounds. Not that that's a small amount of weight, but it just doesn't sound like enough of a problem to warrant something like this, in my opinion. And so she continues, once I did throw up, and it has almost become impossible to puke because I ate eggs and bread for breakfast, and I guess it was too much. As soon as I puked, I was completely fine. Other symptoms. Eating too quickly and slightly too much causes incredible stomach pain. The pain that makes you curl up into a ball. Take your time with food. I also get early morning sickness. I can only eat very little in the morning and need a big break before drinking anything, including coffee. I don't know why. Take your iron supplements and your vitamins. I am terrible at taking them and I'm already seeing the consequences. I'm anemic now and really tired because of it. Okay, and so here's another thing. I don't want you to think of the stomach as just this bag that holds food and grinds it up and sends it into the intestine. It's more like a purse or a book bag than just a simple bag. Like a book bag has sections for different things. Like I can put my pen in this section. I can put my credit cards in this section. I have a place for, my iPhone. When we used to have wired headphones, you can stick your headphone wire through your book bag and stick your iPhone in there. It's got sections for different things. And so when you've removed the majority of your stomach, some of the normal functions of that stomach to secrete the acid, to, the mucus, the amount of mucus that the stomach can secrete to protect the layering of the stomach. Some of the places where you have better absorption, like those things get compromised. And I'm sure there are ways around this, through diet and supplementation. But you've got to remember, it's not as simple as I'm taking part of my stomach and removing it and having a small stomach. It's a little bit more complicated than that. There are certain parts of the stomach where hormones are released and other parts where those hormones are not released. And so all of this you should consider if you're considering something like this. Think about the gravity of what it means to do this, because it's not as simple as I'm going to make my stomach small, make myself eat less, and that's going to solve my problem. It will solve your problem, but are you still going to be eating the way that you want to eat or the way that you were eating? You might go back to the way that you were. Are you comfortable with experiencing some of these things that this person is experiencing? And so if you are comfortable with experiencing these type of side effects, if you're willing to go through that, what really needs to be asked is, what is the reason why you're willing to go through this and not be willing to go through what you might need to go through in a natural sense to reduce the amount of body fat that you're carrying or the amount of weight that you're carrying naturally. Like, really think about that. You're willing to go through pain that you have no control over versus exercise and changing your food. Both of those are not easy things, but this seems so much worse to me. And so I wonder why. And I think that you should too. Think about whether or not this is worth it. Now, she continues. I had quite the hair loss starting 4 to 5 months in. It has now stopped and I have a lot of baby hairs, but it will take at least a year to go back to normal, I think. It does and did impact my confidence more than I thought. She goes into non-scale observations and victories. I've been smallish before, so this isn't new, but people absolutely do treat you better. You become way more visible, and for me, men have started to look my way or stare. I've had more success in dating, and I can go clothes shopping at any store. I have cheekbones, and I can feel my hips and ribs. My heart doesn't pound anymore, and I can actually pull my leg up to tie my shoes. So, I mean, this is life-changing, obviously, This is a life-changing surgery, but I feel like there's stuff that you're missing out on, that you're skipping out on, especially for someone like this that really wasn't that big, in the grand scheme of things to begin with. I think there was an opportunity to change habits, to become a person that can have sustainable results, who knows if this is going to be sustainable for her. So, there were some missed opportunities here, and especially for 218 pounds, which can come down pretty easily if you just do the work to find food that is whole food that works for you. You can absolutely have this. So that's it. I thought this post was really insightful to sort of give me an insight as to what a person like this would go through once they have these surgeries. This one was obviously a successful example, and congrats to her on her weight loss. I'm going to always say this: I think this could have been done without such an invasive procedure, because there's always going to be some trade-offs that I think are worse than exercising and changing your food, to be honest with you. I don't like nausea. I've never liked it. I've never liked being car sick. I've been air sick once. I don't typically experience nausea. I couldn't imagine going through something where nausea is just a part of life. And people that go through it, other than pregnancy, I just don't see any reason to voluntarily put yourself through something where this is a possibility. So I think it's best to use them as a last resort. But there's other examples of the trade-offs of these things not necessarily being worth the risk. Fen-phen, for example, I don't know if you guys remember, this is way back in 1997. Fen-phen was pulled off the market for some of the issues that it was causing with heart valves and pulmonary hypertension. There was another drug called Marita, aka sibutramine, that was removed in 2010 for heart attacks that it was causing, heart attacks and stroke. Belviq, recalled in 2020 due to increased risk of cancer. Ephedra, which was banned in 2004, linked to heart attacks. Rimonabant, also known as Acompia, that was removed in 2009 for severe psychiatric side effects, depression, suicidal thoughts. I mean, these things always have some sort of trade-off. And it just goes back to the question, do you think the trade-off is worth it? And if you think so, by all means. But I know that if you're on this channel, you probably want to find out how to do this the natural way. And you probably don't want to go through what these things might entail that you go through. And so that's why I help people do it the natural way. We've got to find food that you like, that you can eat consistently, that will also get you on the way towards your goals. That's really the key. And so I help people navigate this. But that's it for today. Let me know if you have a story that you want to share. I'd love to read your story. If you want some advice, send me a DM, follow me on Instagram, Uche and let's create a community around this, and let's see how we can help each other solve the weight loss equation for each other. All right, I'll talk to you soon.